Good afternoon, everyone. Stacy Alcorn here. Thank you for joining us for another week of how to build a $10 million business. This week, I have one of the highest performing teams at LAER. I have Dennis Page of Dennis Page and Associates. Thank you for joining us, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your business. When did you start real estate? Why did you start real estate? Did you ever have another career before this? And then how much business are you doing today?
All right. Well, I started in real estate about 35 years ago. And I actually started doing it part-time. At the time, my background is in computer engineering, and I was working for a computer company in Bedford, Massachusetts, and started selling real estate part-time with a Century 21 franchise at that time, and Bill Ricker. I kind of got into real estate in a kind of roundabout way. My real interest in real estate from the beginning was from the investment perspective. So I one of the things that I had noticed, in books I've read and so forth, were that most of the millionaires in this country were as a result of owning real estate. So that was my primary focus. I started buying up some investment properties and started managing those properties. All the time I was still working full time. And then, I started thinking about trying to do real estate part-time. And really in the beginning, it was just more to get access to investment opportunities than anything else at the time. And then I started, doing it part-time and started building a business from there. And I started buying more investment properties. And at that some point in time, there were some transitions going on at the computer company that I was working for. They got purchased by another company, and my job was kind of being phased out, not necessarily phased out, but changed. And at that point, I made a leap and decided to try to do it full time. And that was 35 years ago, which is hard to believe, but that's how I got started.
And let's talk about investment. So first of all, how much business is your team doing now?
You could probably tell me better than I can right now, but I think I'd have to go look at the numbers. I should have prepared myself. I just got that the other day, but I'm sure it's definitely in excess of $10 million, but I really don't know what the number is.
All right, it's way over $10 million.
Okay.
I've never met somebody that does as much business as you that doesn't know exactly what they do.
I figure it out when tax time comes. It's usually when I figure it out.
It's way over $10 million. All right. So going back to investment. So you originally got into the business because you do investment, you're a developer, you run a successful real estate team. As far as investments go, I'm curious on your take. Is it still a good time to buy investment property?
Well, yeah, it is. Even though a lot of things have gotten very, very pricey, it's definitely more challenging, more people involved in it. But and probably everybody else out there doesn't know, but I'm involved with my son too, and we've been buying some properties. And in fact, we just bought a property, haven't closed on it yet, but we bought a property last week that's a single family rental. And the way that I look at investment properties is that basically you're buying an asset, and it's going to produce income. And at the end of the day, somebody else is paying for your investment. There's work that's involved. You got to. It's not like going out and buying a stock where you just sit on it and hope that things go well. But in this case, you're buying an asset that's going to produce income. And essentially, I've got to come up with the down payment money. But over the course of time, somebody is going to. If I hold that property through term, somebody's going to end up paying for me, and at the end of the day, I owe nothing on it. So it's a property that somebody else has paid for me. So it still the investment still works. The numbers, rents typically increase to accommodate for the price changes. I mean, it's really. I look at some of the prices. We bought properties in Lowell for a number of years, and I looked at some of the multifamily prices, and they're pretty scary. But I think you got to pick your spots. You got to be careful, and the old adage in real estate: location, location, location. If you buy well-located properties, you're going to be able to attract good paying tenants, and you're going to be able to minimize the trouble you have with the property. So there's definitely still good investment opportunities. We just are finishing up with my partner. We're doing 64 units of rentals in Tingsboro.
Mhm.
So that's with that property. Another one we developed down the street. We're going to have 100 rental units. They're about 10 minutes from the office and 10 minutes from my house. So it helps to manage those. But yeah, I think there's definitely still good real estate opportunities, investment opportunities out there.
All right. By the way, I ran your numbers while you were talking, and you personally, it's $25 million in business in the last 12 months, and the team is more closer to about over $50 million.
Yep. So we had a good year.
You had a great year. And one thing that's really interesting that you just alluded to is in buying investment. I was reading Tony Robbins' book on money. And like what Tony Robbins says is if you're in real estate, you should, like, your investments should be in real estate, not in stock. Invest in what you know and understand. And for us, it's real estate. So.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, one of my mentors, I had mentioned I've worked with the Century 21 office, Gloria Brown. I don't know you
Yes.
know Gloria, but one of the things that she had said to me that stuck with me through my life was that you can make a living selling real estate, but you get rich owning real estate. That's always been one of the premises that I've operated under, that I've always wanted to own real estate, and you want to own what you sell. If you truly believe in what you sell, and it basically reinforces what you're out there doing every day, that you really believe in your product. And it's most millionaires in this country have gotten to the point where they are through real estate. So I don't think that changes. I mean, we when you get down to the bottom of it, we're selling the United States of America, which is a great product to be selling.
I love that. All right, let's talk about business, real estate business. If a lead comes into the team, first of all, do you still work with buyers at all?
Not really, just through referrals. So, typically our team is kind of not the conventional real estate team. I mean, we really operate as a business within a business. So the people that work with me typically are just running their own businesses, and I try to put some business their way. And when in new construction projects, everybody has an opportunity to get involved in our new construction projects, which is appealing, having that inventory. But we don't have a normal team structure where we're all working things together. We're really just individuals that collaborate on certain things, but everybody's got the freedom to run their own business. So as far as leads coming in, if there are listing leads, which some come in, buyer leads for new construction, I just try to pretty much mix that around, and there may be a reason that one person would have a better skill set to deal with one situation versus another. So in that case, I would direct it to them. Mm-hmm. But we just pretty much share in the leads and share in. I personally don't, unless it's a buyer that somebody referred to me. Mm-hmm. I typically don't work buyers at all. But I would refer that out to somebody.
So knowing that one of the reasons why, or one of the value propositions that your team has is that you do have a lot of new construction, and that means a lot of open houses on brand new properties, which are typically easier to sell than a resale property. How do you figure out who gets to do the open houses from the team point of view?
So we just have a rotating schedule. Basically we have, the most recent project we had was Tingsboro Crossing, mm-hmm. which was a 120 unit condominium project. Mm-hmm. And we just had a schedule that rotated. Everybody got an opportunity to work there. Everybody get paid to work there. Just a stipend of $25 an hour for the open houses, but they also had the opportunity to pick up any buyers that came through, or any potential sellers. A lot of people are very good at picking up people that are going to sell from somewhere else and end up buying here, or not necessarily even buying at that particular development. But it gives people a lot of opportunity because the open houses are typically pretty busy. Mm-hmm. So they get to share. If they sell a property, they get the full buyer side of the commission, and in addition, they're getting a small amount of money to be there. But it just rotates through.
Let's talk about, because in addition to being the real estate agent, you are the developer in a lot of the properties. One of the things that I find interesting about you, and it's always been like this in the 20 years that I've known you, other developers come and hire you. So technically it's interesting to me because where some might look at you and say, well, he's a competitor, he's building houses down the street. They actually want to hire you to sell their properties.
Some
How
of
does
them.
that work? That's
Some,
awesome.
some of them won't, because specifically because of that reason, and it's a challenge. So over the years, I've worked with several other builders, and I've got one other group of builders that I work with pretty regularly right now.
Mm-hmm.
And as well as being clients, they're friends. So we have compromised in areas where I wouldn't. I've been in situations with other builders where I had a project in the same market, and I said to them that I can't honestly tell you that my project's not going to come before yours when it comes to sell. So you might be better off in this situation to hire somebody else, and they have. And but other situations where we're not directly competing, and I feel that I can fully represent you, then I'm going to go forward and try to do that. And I think that part of the value of me coming into that situation is I think like them.
Mm-hmm.
I have the same mindset. I know what their challenges are, and I can do things that other agents might not necessarily be able to do, or I have a base of knowledge that helps to basically helps to make their product successful. So, from that perspective, it's worked well. But there are times where it doesn't make sense, and there are people who would never list with me because of that. Because we're going to be competing to the biggest challenge is finding projects, and that's one of the downsides I have in a lot of cases. If a great project comes across my desk, I'm not necessarily going to pass it along to somebody. So, it works for some people, it doesn't work for some others, but in cases where it does work, it works well.
What percentage of projects happen to come across your desk versus the number of projects you go out and dig and find?
Probably 2% have come across my desk.
Yes.
98,
That's where you
98%
spend your time, right? You're out looking for projects constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got, I start my day off. My computer's programmed through MLS. I've got all kinds of searches set up specifically for types of, certain towns, certain amounts of land, houses that have excess lots, other types of investment opportunities. So every morning, that's the first thing I look at. Is I get up and look at what used to be called the hot sheet, and just see what opportunities are out there and go look at them. And we work in a wide area, but beyond here, we've got a project up in Maine where we just finished. And I'm not doing this all by myself, by the way. I have a partner that's a builder partner. And that's just to back up a little bit into how I got involved in this. So I started selling real estate, and when I did that, one of the things I looked at, and one of the things I continue to look to do right now is to look at other people that are successful and what makes them successful in this business, and what are their skills, and what do they bring to the table. So when I got in starting real estate, I started looking around and who's making a lot of money at this business. And go back to Gloria Brown again, and one of the things she told me, if you want to last in this business, list. And versus being not there's anything wrong with the buyer agent, we can talk about that, but the advantage of having a listing is I can be at the beach and my listing is still out there working, versus if I'm working with a buyer, I can't be at the beach and be working at that buyer. So and my training is as was in engineering, so I'm very analytical about things. So I looked at it, it's like, well, who's making the most money and why are they making the most money? And in going back to if you want to list properties, well, wouldn't it be better to be with somebody that's going to produce 25 listings a year versus having to find 25 different people to get a listing from? So at that point, I looked at the business and said, ideally, I want to be in new construction because I'm going to have a steady source of inventory all the time. At that point, I wasn't a builder, so I partnered with. Over the course of my career, I've probably been with 3 different builders. The one I've been with now Dave Trahan I've been with we've been together since the 80s. So, you know, that's a great partnership, in that he handles the construction end of things, I handle the marketing end of things, and basically we work together on getting projects approved and permitted. So I got off track there, but that's.
So when it comes to finding projects, how do you factor in that it could take years for a project to come to fruition and you really don't know what the market brings years from now?
That's always a challenge, and especially, you know, you look at a market now where there's very, very little inventory of land. Land prices are extremely high. You know, so you're looking at market conditions right now that are very, very good, very favorable. Interest rates at 2%. But you know, when I got started in this business, I'm going to really date myself, but mortgage rates on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage was 18.5%. So you know, I don't anticipate that interest rates are going to do anything like that right now. But you know, the only thing we know right now is that we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years, 5 years, and you know, what we're dealing with right now with the pandemic is a perfect example of you never know what's going to happen. So, you know, I guess the answer to your question is you try to take as much information as you have, but and try to make decisions based on the information you have at hand. But you always got to be prepared for things to change, and you know, and probably one of the mistakes I made early in my career, before when the savings and loan crisis came along, was that I was highly leveraged and didn't have any safety margin. So, you know, now we try to look at things and try to project, even if things go bad, if prices drop 25%, and you know, at least going to be able to survive it. Is it going to, you know, not get into something that if things turn bad, you're not going to be able to survive. So you're never going to be able to figure it all out, but you try to have as much information and try to make decisions based on the information that you have and leave yourself as much margin as you possibly can. All easier said than done, but that's kind of what the thinking process is.
What would you say was the worst day of your career?
The day I had to file bankruptcy. That was back in the savings and loan era. I was in my 20s, and I'd started buying a lot of property, and I got, you know, it's doing very, very well, but I just kind of got in the situation I was just describing, whereas to use a term, I was leveraged up to my eyeballs. So leverage is great when things are going up, and you know, if you can put down 10% on a piece of property and then property's appreciating at 10% a year, that leverage is working terrifically because your 10% is producing a much higher return. But leverage is a double-sided sword, because when it goes the other way and all of a sudden you can't keep up with your payments and you know, the whole thing comes crashing down, it comes back to haunt you essentially. So having to do that and having to give up a lot of properties and everything else was probably the most difficult thing, but you know, it was a great education, and you know, bounced back from that.
That's awesome, in a big way. How many investment properties do you have now?
Well, in terms of rental units, I think we own about 125 rental units. And I've got some seasonal rentals and a few other things.
And it's interesting because we used to work together when I was in mortgages. And I know back then you were very much into like a short-term mortgage, 10-year mortgage. It was the highest payment, so you didn't make a ton of money on the property. But now probably most of those properties are all paid off. Do you still believe in that?
Now that I'm approaching retirement, no, you're absolutely right. And you know, even we've got several. One of the investment homes vehicles we have is we own group homes. We're a provider for the Department of what used to be the Department of Mental Health. And those properties we put all on 15-year mortgages. We had 10-year leases. They you know, they were tremendous investments, and now they're all paid off. So it's been worthwhile doing that. We did that with a 42-unit rental that we have. We put that on a 15-year mortgage, and you know, it's amazing how fast 10 years go by. And all of a sudden you've built up a lot of equity. So if you can afford to do it, I mean, the way, if you really want to get convinced, just, get into a mortgage calculator and say, here's my property. What am I going to pay for it on a 10-year mortgage versus a 15-year mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
or a 30-year mortgage, and look at how much you're going to pay at the end of the day. If you can make a shorter term work, it's definitely going to work in your favor.
Hmm.
And as you build up equity too, it also, if you ever do get in a pinch and need to get money, you built up equity. You can go back and try to tap some of that equity if you need to.
One of the things that's interesting about your team, and I wonder what kind of advice you would give to other team leaders, is that when I look at your team, I don't know the exact number, but let's say you have 6 or 7 team members. But what's interesting about your team is I think every one of those team members, for the most part, has been with you for a decade or more. How do you keep people? Like, you really don't have any turnover on your team. How is that possible?
Well, I think we've got a structure that works well for the people that are there. As I said earlier, it's kind of structured so that everybody works their individual businesses under mine. And, I don't really look at the team as being a profit center for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, I've always looked at it as having people around me that can help support me.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I can give them some opportunity. So, and everybody for the most part has been successful, or, has achieved what they wanted to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's probably been the key to why they haven't moved. There have been some people that, did leave and left for reasons that made perfect sense. And I've always encouraged people to do what is best for them. But, I think everybody is pretty happy because of the structure that we have.
When you go on a listing appointment, so I know you rarely work buyers unless it's a referral. You do occasionally work listings. Somebody will call you, they want to list their property. I'm curious what a listing appointment looks like. Do you actually have to sell, or you don't have to because they're calling you?
No, I typically, I go into every listing appointment and try to be as prepared as I possibly can. I've gone in, I've got, people ask me all the time, what's something worth? And I always say, I don't know. Until I do the work, I don't know. I mean, and people look at me like, well, you're supposed to know. Well, to me, it's all about the data. So if I want to know, and I have this conversation with my team people all the time, it's the same thing. Go do the work and then ask me what it's worth, because once you get to that point, you're going to know what it's worth. So, do extensive research on the comps. Going into a listing appointment, know what your value proposition is, I think is really important. And, I'll go in and through MLS do an area market survey, show people what's going on in the marketplace, show people what our market share is in each individual community that we're working. So, I mean, I don't know if everybody does that, but, we've got great market share in the communities that we work. So it's a powerful selling tool. I'll go in there and demonstrate, I firmly believe in using virtual tours, professional photography, floor plans,
Mm-hmm.
show people how I'm going to present their property. The old saying that you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's super important to have a property and to highlight that property when you put it out on the, especially now with the internet. I mean, when I started out in the business, we didn't have the tools that we have right now that can really make somebody's property stand out. So, and know my own personal statistics. When I take a listing, what are my average sales list to sale price? What those ratios are. So those are the types of things that I'm going to sell them. Is sell people on my experience, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I've professionally negotiate for you, and all the things that I can bring to the table. But yeah, I go in and try to be fully prepared.
Do you market a new construction different than any other property, or is it all the same type of marketing?
No, I'd say it's different. I think typically with a project, we're going to set up a full website. We're gonna have a lot more information. Like I'm doing a condo development. We're going to have condo docs on the website. We're going to have floor plans. We're going to have virtual tours. We're going to have specifications. So it's a lot more detailed. and you know, it's especially when you get into custom home type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot more challenging and time consuming too, because there are, you know, sometimes it's, I look at a house and, you know, I had a listing in Westford that put on a couple months ago. It was like a $1.2 million listing and sold for 1.3. So I've had several of those that are new construction. Well, to get to that point in a $1.3 million house in new construction, you probably worked 6 months at it and gone through all these selections with people, and it's very, very time consuming. So sometimes just having a resale house that sells really quickly is well, it's good for everybody, but you know, it's different than the whole new construction experience.
Is there any technology that you rely on in your business?
Well, we were talking about earlier, definitely visual tours,
Yeah.
photographs, you know, having all that professionally done. I do pay-per-click marketing with typically with new construction projects through Google, Bing. You know, setting up websites is really key for new construction. I am using Facebook advertising just through things like HomeSnap and
Mm-hmm.
Back At You and that type of thing to do weekly type Facebook marketing. Technology, I mean, the biggest technology and also the one that's the most burdensome is email. You know, everything. I guess when I first started out, everything was done by phone, so you get a million phone calls a day. Now you get a million emails all a day, and you know, and less telephone time. Those are the main things that I'm using technology wise. I think you know, I'm at a stage in my career where I'm going in some different directions, but the people that are, you know, my son's involved in the business and he's using Instagram. He's much more involved in Facebook, much more use of social media than I have. I've never been able to get into the Facebook thing so much. So showing my age, but you know, I think that's what you have to do these days is really utilize social media. It's absolutely powerful tool. If I was in a different place, I would definitely try to use that as much as I possibly could.
Do you use any type of CRM? Are you staying in touch with the thousands of people who have bought from you?
Not as well as I should. I send out. I have a database where I send out Christmas cards once a year, and every single year that gets me four or five transactions. So I wish I did more of it. I wish I had tracked it better over the years. But you know, and again, if I was starting out or talking to one of my team members, we just had this conversation a day or two ago with my son and one other person that, you know, you really need to build a database so that you can market electronically and, you know, take over. My goal for them was to work we built 300 condos in Tingsboro in the last 10 years to try to tap into that base of people so that you can, you know, basically you can make a career out of those 300 units.
Yes. Interesting. You talk about your son being one of your main team members. Is it hard working with family or is it easier?
It's had its challenges. I think it was more difficult before. I think we kind of fit it in. I mean, you know, sometimes it's difficult, especially in the father-son relationship, where, you know, I talk to him on a business level, and he might take it as a father level, and you know, we've had conversations numerous times about how you have to separate it, and I have to do that too, and realize that I can't. You know, sometimes there were things that I could say to him, and go back and think about it. It's like, well, I would have never said that to one of my other team members. I can't treat him, you know. So
Yes.
separating was a challenge, but you know, we've been doing it for a while now. I think he might be there. I don't even know, probably 10 years at this point. So we've kind of developed an understanding, not that we don't butt heads every now and then, but for the most part, it works out pretty good.
What does a typical day look like for you? Like, are there 2 or 3 things that you have to do every day to consider that you won the day?
Well, like I said, I get up in the morning, and first thing I do is go through emails, have a cup of coffee. I am definitely a planner. Everything's scheduled out. I got in the habit a long time ago of writing down, and I still have a paper system, but whether it's your phone or something else, is to have everything. My day's planned, my weeks are planned. Everything, you know, is kind of regimented into 15-minute segments. So, I get up in the morning, I know everything. I don't go to bed having to worry about what I got to do the next day. I don't even think about it because everything's written down, and I don't even remember it. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is I look at my schedule and say, this is what I have to do today. I don't want to be thinking about it when I'm trying to fall asleep. So I'll go through that, look at emails. That might trigger something else I need to do, something else I might want to look at. Unfortunately, a lot of my day is just dealing with email. It can be burdensome, as everybody knows. And in terms of, personally, I'm going to exercise 4 or 5 times a week, put an hour aside for that. I've gotten to the point where I'd like to have an hour at the end of the day to watch TV. One of the challenges in my life, if I had to do a lot of things over, would be to try to schedule more personal time. It's a challenge trying this business, as everybody knows, is very, very challenging, very time consuming. So trying to find enough time for yourself and trying to separate business from your personal life is always a challenge. But those are really the things that I'm trying to, I have an agenda, and to feel like I've completed the day, I want to usually try to get everything that I had on my agenda done for that day. But sometimes you get sidetracked and things carry over. So that at the end of the day, I want to feel I've done everything I can possibly do work-wise, and then let it go and relax for a couple hours and get up and start all over.
And do you take vacation time? If so, how?
Well, I've never. I spend 4 months a year in Florida. Everybody thinks I go on vacation. I don't. I'm leaving January 5th, and I'll be down there until May. I moved my office to Florida for those 4 months. I have a house in Maine where I spend pretty much every weekend up during the summer. I haven't had like what I would consider a real vacation in probably 2 decades, where and I think technology is somewhat made that impossible. It used to be that you go away for a week, 2 weeks, tell everybody you're going to be gone, everybody leave you alone, come back, you pick up where you left off. These days we have cell phones that won't let us go, we have email. So I think that's really challenging to try to find a way to have a true vacation. Maybe it's just me, maybe I should work at it harder, but that's been a challenge. And I do plan, and I planned more this year on doing more travel and trying to get away for a week or two and see. But that's all gotten sidetracked like everybody else with COVID. But that's definitely still on the agenda.
Any pet peeves that you see or have in this business?
I would say people that, well, a couple. So people that are non-responsive when people don't return phone calls or don't answer emails or don't respond. That probably drives me crazier than anything else. Is when I give somebody a lead and or an agent calls me and said I've been trying to reach somebody in the team and they're not returning my call and they're not calling me back, and that is definitely probably the top one. People that don't treat the job like a job. There are people that, real estate is a job. Some people don't treat it that way. They don't have any kind of regular work schedule. They don't have a plan. So I mean, from that perspective, that type of person, is less professional than they should be. Put it that way.
Yes. Over the years, you have been very involved in the real estate board, local, state. Do you recommend that other real estate agents get involved with their board, and why?
Yeah, I absolutely do, and I wish I'd done it sooner. So for a lot of reasons why, it'll definitely help you networking. It's much easier to do business with somebody you know. And that whole realtor organization provides people an opportunity to get to know a lot of other people. It also keeps you up to date on what's going on in the business. And it's kind of, if I would recommend it, not right now because of everything that's going on with COVID, but National Association of Realtors has a week in Washington, D.C. That we go down and lobby for whatever the particular agenda is for that year, and it's kind of amazing to see if you've never done it, and just how government works. And you get to go in, you see your senators, your congressmen, and get to talk to them about real estate, which is really valuable because they get to hear it from lay people, which is one of the key things about the realtor organization is it's all realtors that are going to Washington D.C. and talking to their representatives. So I found it to be a very valuable experience. So I would highly recommend it.
All right, just a couple more questions before we wrap up. Super interested in finding out, like, especially because we were both with the same franchise for many, many years. I am curious on what your take is. Like, first of all, I always tell people, I feel like the brand in real estate is the real estate agent, not whatever company they work for. That what a real estate brokerage actually offers is just support to the real estate agents. What are your thoughts? Like, do you think an agent needs a brand name to be successful?
I think, like you say, it really comes down to a personal relationship more than anything else. That's one of the things that kind of makes our business different than a lot of businesses. Is that you have an interpersonal relationship. It's one of the reasons that we've been able to survive the whole onslaught of technology, which if you look at travel agents or a lot of insurance, a lot of other financial type service businesses have been replaced by technology. So it's going to continue to be a challenge for our business because it's a big part of the economy and people are going to keep coming at it. But I think it really comes down to as you said, an interpersonal relationship. Are there other times when a brand can help? I think so. If you're going from, if I'm relocating from Massachusetts and going to California where I don't know anybody, then that brand can have some value. At least those brands have gone out and they've created a lot of recognition and tried to build trust. So when you're coming from an area where you don't know anybody, yeah, it might make a difference at that point. But in our local market, for the most part, I think it really comes down to building your sphere of influence, building your personal brand is more important than anything.
Do you have any books, podcasts, anybody that you follow, like mentors, coaches? I know you mentioned Gloria Brown. Anything else? Any other person or book?
You mentioned it earlier. I mean, I've been a big Tony Robbins fan for a long time, and I found his work invaluable. If there was anybody I'd recommend, it would be Tony Robbins for sure. I read a lot of books as a kid. I mean, Think and Grow Rich was a book that really hit me, and I picked up a lot of advice from that. I don't listen to podcasts. I'd like to. I'd like to find the time to do it. So maybe when I'm down in Florida, I can do that.
Yes. And then my last question, many people may not realize this, but I originally became a broker owner because of you. I bought my Remax off of you, I think 20 years ago, which is crazy. Yeah. And at the time, only because I think it's just a perspective. At the time when I was buying the brokerage off of you, you had a very successful real estate office, and you basically said, I'm going to just be an agent. I'll have a small team and I'm going to be a real estate agent. And I said, why would you want to do that? And you said, I want to make money. So there's something to that. Like, if you could just talk for a minute, because I think this is an important message for a few people. Number one, there are people out there who aspire to own a brokerage. And I think you can accomplish the same goal without having to go out and take on all the expenses of owning a brokerage. But I'd love you to share your thoughts on owning a brokerage versus building a team.
Yeah. So at that time, one of the considerations that I had, was that, I was trying to run a real estate company, recruit people, and have agents. And as you know, in Remax, I was basically a working broker owner, so I was working, trying to produce my own business and trying to help agents within a company. So I was running a brokerage. I was doing my own brokerage business, and I was doing development, and I had investment properties. And it's like you just can't do everything, and you can't do everything well. Was kind of how I looked at it. And I also think that you have to know yourself, and know what your strengths are and know what your weaknesses are. And one of the questions is, well, I've done this for 35 years, so I've done it. The reason I've been able to do it for 35 years is I really like what I'm doing. The saying that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life has kind of been my mantra, and then I still to this day get up and I'm excited to go to work. But the real, the owning a business, I could have picked one of three of those things to do. And like you said, I looked at it, and from my perspective, the thing I enjoyed least was owning an office. The thing I enjoyed most was developing, and behind that, brokerage, and those kind of go hand in hand. And it is a huge amount of work. It's a huge commitment and huge expense. So, looking at it from the other side, it's like I would much rather have somebody else doing all the structural type work of running a business and free myself up to go make money, whether through sales or development. And could you own a business and make a lot of money? I think you could, but and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I mean, it's a huge commitment of time and energy. And if that's what you enjoy most and that's what you do best, then, that's what your focus should be. For me, it wasn't there. And, the team structure of being with a company that's taken, the Remax thing was you have all the advantages of owning your own business without having the disadvantages that go along with it. So it's really quite, and you've taken that same mantra and turned it into a similar type environment with a different brand, but it works very well for people like me that have other strengths that we can better utilize to be profitable and not just profitable, just enjoy life more.
Yes, that's awesome. All right. Any last words of advice for our people listening today?
No real advice, just I guess we were talking a little bit earlier about the market. One thing I will say, if you've been in this business 10 years or less, you've seen nothing but good markets. You have to to survive in this business, you really have to be prepared to pivot. When things change, you might have to make some changes in your careers. Like I said, when earlier, I look at it and I see all kinds of people that are successful with this business. And really it comes down to specialties. You got to specialize in something. People specialize in neighborhoods, people specialize in cities, foreclosures, new construction. There's a lot of different things. I mean, you got to do all aspects of the business, but to really be the people that are really successful, I think, have some type of a specialty. So, if you can find what that is, and then, be willing to pivot. At one point in my career, when new construction was doing nothing, we did nothing but foreclosures that during the savings and loan crisis. So you gotta adapt to the business, and be prepared for downturns. Be able to, don't leverage yourself up to your eyeballs, and make sure you're in a position because we will see downturns. It's not straight up. Real estate, like every other financial part of our economy, is a cycle. We're in a great cycle right now, but someday it's going to come to an end, and just be prepared to be able to ride it out. And when things do get bad, you got to tell yourself that it's not going to stay like that forever either. Things will turn on the other direction. So it's been a very challenging and rewarding career, but I wouldn't do anything else.
Awesome. Dennis Page, thank you so much for spending so much time and sharing insight into your business today. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody. And tune in next Tuesday, same time, same place for how to build a $10 million business. Thanks, everyone.